Is there anything that's off limits in our conversation?
No, I think we're good.
All right. Well,
I don't have anything off the top of my head.
all right. We'll just start chatting, and you can tell us all about your business. If it freezes, I'll let you know.
Okay, sounds good.
So when you started working with Megan and Joey, what was your revenue at, and then what is it at now?
Yeah, when I started, I believe it was 2021, early of 2021, and I would have been maybe around, it was in the springtime. So I was probably that year definitely under $1 million, maybe like 500,000 or so. I think I did about 250 the year before I started working with them. And then I joined on with them in the springtime. And that was 2021 in the spring when I joined with them. And now I'm did about 2 million last year.
Wow, that's absolutely awesome, Jack. So tell me the story of starting your business, getting to the 250,000 revenue mark, doubling, getting about 500,000, and then getting into a couple million. And Joey's, he doesn't tell me your details, but he tells me you're very profitable and you're crushing it. So share a little bit of the journey there.
Yeah. So when I started, it was just me, and I was doing, pretty basic services, lawn maintenance, and some property cleanups, mowing and stuff like that. So I worked about a year alone. And then towards the end of the year, I got some help. So I got one guy, and then it turned into two. And then I just ran with like 1 to 2 guys helping me for about another year. And then that following year, when I started with Megan and Joey, I jumped up to about 5 people and had a couple crews going at once. And then my goal was to get out of myself working, because I simply couldn't do it with all the work coming in and all the quotes I had to do. I couldn't be working and running the business at the same time. So I tried to move through that as fast as possible and get out as soon as possible. Not that I didn't want to do the work, but I wanted to grow the business. So I moved through that pretty quick, as fast as possible. And that was a hard time. I mean, it's a lot going on at once, but if you can get through that and just sort of be at the top, managing it all as fast as possible, that's kind of what I did. And so 5, and then once you get through that, you can go from 5. I went basically to 10 in a year, and then to 15. And then I'm in like the 15 to 20 area now, as far as people working for me. So if you can get through working in the field, there's going to be a little time period we're going to have to do both, of course. But if you can get through that as fast as possible and keep a little bit of profit while you're moving through that seemed to be the way to go.
So now you got approximately 15 employees, maybe 20 during the peak season, and you're out of the field. How are you able to maintain profit? What's your secrets to making sure it's running in the black?
Yeah, so we keep it pretty simple. We do a lot of mowing, a lot of year-round maintenance, which I really like. It's more predictable than the other things I was doing. I remember last time I talked to you, I was in the middle of doing a lot of hardscaping work, which I liked, but I'm out of that pretty much completely now. And so we're doing year-round maintenance, some landscape installation, planting, stuff like that, stuff that comes with it. But keeping it simple seems to be the best way to go. It's not as fun and exciting as it sounds, but that seems to be the way to go. You can create systems to go around it, and it's a little more predictable, and it just seems to run smoother if you're doing the same thing throughout the seasons every single year. It's more predictable.
And tell me a little bit more about your equipment. What do you have? How have you bought it? Do you have debt on it? What? Because you know, if you're servicing all these customers, you clearly have to have the machines to do so. What's been your philosophy behind all of that?
Yeah, so starting out, I was pretty against debt. I would scour the internet and Facebook and Craigslist for deals and buy stuff used. And I think that was, I I think that was a good decision. I stayed away from debt for a long time. And now I'm not against it, but I'll use it when it's smart, like some mowers and stuff like that, you can get 0%. And I don't buy anything that I wouldn't buy with cash and am ready to use. So I don't overextend myself. So I keep the debt pretty low as far as the revenue and profit goes. I'll use it from time to time on mowers and stuff like that and some newer trucks, because I do find value in having a newer, nicer truck and less downtime there. But I'm not super extended as far as debt. I really don't love going into it, but if it makes sense, I will. So I have a little bit of debt on some mowers that are really low finance and some trucks that are pretty low interest rates. But that's about it.
Give us the details. What year, make, model, or your vehicles? What brand mowers you have? Guys get
They
all
love that. Yeah.
They love it. So that you can't be general and be like, yeah, I got some mowers and stuff. What kind of mowers? What kind of trucks?
Yeah. So there's a couple of dealers of mowers that I like around here, and that's kind of my philosophy on the mowers. I don't really care about the mower brand at all. I just like the dealer, and if the dealer has these mowers, I'll buy from them. So we use Kubota and some Bobcat. Kubota, I really like the Snapper Pro. They kind of stopped making those. The walk behind Snapper Pro, I had a bunch of those. I still use those. But so Snapper Pro walk behinds, and then Kubota and Bobcat zero turns is what we have. And then I like Ford trucks. So we have some Ford F-250s, some of the newer ones, and those are nice. I really like those. I have a F-150. So we have mostly Ford trucks. And then the three that I have financed, or the two or three trucks that I have financed, are Ford F-250s.
Okay. And then when it comes to your power equipment, are you Echo, Steel, Red Max?
Echo and a little bit of Red Max. I like the dealer. The dealer has Echo, so we use mostly Echo blowers and weed eaters. The Echo blowers are really strong. We have a lot of leaves in this area, so we buy the big 90-10 and 80-10 blowers. And those handle leaves, and we have some commercial stuff. So big parking lots, nice big blowers is key.
Yeah, those 90-10s are a little my shoulders and back is a little heavy on it, but that's the absolute best
for sure.
In my opinion. What city in Virginia are you in again, Jack?
I'm in Charlottesville.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Now, when it comes to the employees, what kind of attrition do you have? What do you do with them? And I know it gets butt chilly cold up there in January, February. My buddy Naylor lives in Midlothian, and I'll see him in his truck with his hoodie on. It'll be like 37 degrees in the winter. So how do you float the winter? How do you find great employees? What's kind of been your learning experience with the 15 or so folks out there actually in the Virginia heat or cold doing the work?
Yeah, I've been really blessed and really fortunate. The team that I have now is the exact same as all of last year and pretty much the year before. So I've kept people. I've really kept attrition down, which I've been really fortunate to do. So I haven't really had that issue, luckily. And in the wintertime, we'll be able to do leaves through like November and December. We'll be pretty full-time doing leaves. And then there's about a 12-week period where it is a little bit tough to fill the gaps in, but I'll make sure to get them full hours, which I think is really important. And I think that's been a key to keeping people on to, when they start, I guarantee that they'll stay on, even if it hits me a little bit. But it's important to keep them on. So we'll keep the schedule full with doing some cleanups and some odd projects here and there. And then if it does snow, we'll get plenty of hours doing that. But yeah, there's about a 12-week period where it is a little bit tough to keep the schedule full. But I think it's really important to do that and to make sure that they feel secure that they're going to get a paycheck every week.
Are they friends before they started working with you? Where are you finding them, like recruiting them? One of the two biggest questions I get, Jack, are Paul, what should I charge, like pricing wise? And we'll get to that in a minute. And then how do I find good employees? So where do you find them? Where do you recruit them from?
I had a couple of connections early on, like in the 2021 area. I knew some guys that were already landscaping, so I was able to offer them a job and pay them a little bit more. And then from there, once you find a couple, and I haven't had to hire in a lot in the last couple of years. I've been pretty fortunate because they'll kind of bring their friends and bring other people that they know in the industry, which is really beneficial for me. But I would say just having a good brand and doing good work and having clean trucks and having a good reputation that you pay well and pay on time and everything like that and provide a lot of hours. But having a good brand definitely helps because they'll reach out from there. And you can find them, around if you see them. I've hired people before that I liked the way they worked even at other jobs, not landscaping, but you can see good employees at other in other industries doing well and liking the way that they work and how they present themselves. And then just around town, like gas stations and stuff like that, I don't think it's a good idea to necessarily poach employees. I don't do that, and I don't like when people try to do that. But at least introduce yourself and let them know who you are and have your number on the trucks and stuff like that. And I find that they eventually will call you. They'll come to you.
That's really good. In regards to paying them, what service do you use, or how do you keep up with all the payroll protocols and expenses for that many employees?
Yeah, so for the actual payroll, I use Gusto, and then I've been using them for a few years. I think it's pretty easy to use. It's pretty simple. And then as far as keeping the time tracking and stuff like that, they get a worksheet every day and keep their hours logged on that. So I count it up at the end of the week and pay them every Friday.
Okay. And are you using a CRM for your billing or what's that on the administrative side of your business?
Yeah, I use Jobber. I started with them. They were the first ones that I used, and I fell in love with it. I think it's so easy to use. You can do it from your phone. You can do everything. I'm sure there's different softwares out there that can offer more, but I think the simplicity is hard to beat. I just love it.
Yeah, for what you're doing, Jobber's perfect. I personally used Jobber since 2019, and it couldn't be any more simple if you're in lawn mowing, maintenance, really any business. Paint, I know painters and folks in other industries that use Jobber, but that's a good one for starting out. If you're in hardscaping, I know there's some other ones that are a little bit more like created for the one-off big hardscaping jobs and all of that. But if you guys are out there looking for a CRM, Jack and I both have used Jobber. I've used it since it was the summertime of 2019, and made me a lot of money.
Yeah,
they do charge. Oh, go ahead.
It's great. It's easy to use. I recommend it.
Yeah, totally. In regards to your customers, share a little bit more about your billing. Do you send them an invoice at the beginning of the month, the end of the month, per service? How are you charging them? Is it a monthly fee? Is it per service? Like, what have you kind of found for your pricing, billing, that side of the business, Jack?
Yeah, so we do a lot of residential and a lot of commercial. I would say it's about 50-50 as far as revenue goes, maybe 60-40, 60 on commercial. But we have a lot of residential clients, and what I do with them is there's no contracts with them. It's just an agreement. And at the end of the month, I'll send them a bill for exactly what we did. And that's how I handled the residential side. And then the commercial is 12-month contract. So I'll send an invoice once a month to commercial. But as far as residential goes, I just go, we do the work. It probably could be done a little bit better, but we do the work, and then at the end of the month I send them a bill for exactly what they did. And I find that way it is easier to get clients to sign on. It takes a lot of the friction out with no contracts.
Yeah, totally. So Megan and Joey brag about you all the time, because they have about 50 customers now that all own a lawn care landscaping business. So I'm constantly talking. I was just chatting with Joey last week and just figuring out like what mistakes are you seeing on the number side of things? And his answer is the prices are too low. Like that's the number one mistake that he notices of 50 different sets of lawn care books. But when I ask him who their best clients are and who's hitting the biggest profit margins, your name keeps coming up. So obviously your prices are, I'm sure you could squeeze the orange juice a little bit more and get even, make even more money. But how did you kind of come to land on your pricing? What goes into when you get a new customer? Like what mathematically are you doing, or have you trained team members to give quotes? Like, how do you know what to charge? Because obviously you're doing a good job, but how did you get to that point?
Yeah, so I still do all the bidding and estimates, and this area here is really tough. There's a lot of the neighborhoods, like if you're trying to do it by square foot, I don't think that's a good way to do it as far as this area, because there's a lot of hills and obstacles and stuff like that. So I think the best way to do it is to do it by the man hour. So once you get to a man hour rate, which I got to just looking at expenses and sort of basing it off of how long things take generally. And since we're doing pretty much the same work, just in different places, it's pretty consistent. So if you can get to a man hour rate where you're comfortable that you're going to make a profit, then you can base it off of that. And also you're going to want to lean a little bit on the higher side, and that's going to protect you. But yeah, keeping your prices high is really important, and not letting people talk you down on price. It's just never worth it. And making sure that you budget some time for everything, the travel time, time in between work, them and inevitably taking breaks. It's like 100 degrees here. I know they're going to take breaks. So you want to schedule that kind of time in, and just make sure you never lose money on a job. It's that simple. You don't ever want to lose money or even break even.
Totally. Now, most of my audience, Jack, is doing 50,000 revenue, 100,000 revenue, a couple 100,000 revenue. They're not doing 2 million like you, and they don't have everything dialed in. So when you say man hour rate, that basically means for one man, one human being, for 1 hour of work, you charge $60 or $70 or $80 or $90. And then if you have two men working 1 hour, that's 2 man hours. But what is that number? Like, what is that figure for you? Is it $75 a man hour, $100 a man hour? What is your number at the $2 million revenue range? Because you have a lot more overhead than the guys listening to me who are just starting out. But what is your number?
Yeah, so it's 60 for me. If we're doing anything by the hour, it is 60, and that will cover all of the payroll and all of the overhead and stuff like that. Now on the mowing, if you have minimums and you can do a little bit better, that's always gravy. But as long as you're making 60, or for me in my numbers, if you're making 60, that's great. And then if you have all 15, 18, 20 employees making 60 an hour, then you'll find yourself making a profit. But the simplest way is just to count up all your expenses and work in just about everything and try to get it down to how much it costs an hour and what your goal profit is. But once you can kind of play around with the number a little bit and see what's taken in your market and see kind of what works as far as selling the jobs go. But finding that number is pretty important, and you can play around with it a little bit and see where it leads you once you set it. And then always try to shoot for something higher if you're bidding, by the job and stuff like that, and having minimums for sure.
Yeah, totally. And if you guys need help with your pricing, I have a new website. It's thepauljameson.com, and it's completely free. I put out a guide of what I hear folks are charging per man hour in the various regions of the United States. So if you're in New York, California, Florida, Arkansas, Texas, it's a different it's a different man hour rate because you have way more expenses in California. $60 a man hour, you're going to go out of business. You got to charge more. But Virginia, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Kansas, you can charge a less of a man hour rate. But anyway, that I have I think it's like 8 or 9 page report, completely free. It's the pricing guide, Entrepreneur's Guide to Price and Lawn Care, over at thepauljameson.com for a limited time. It's free. But you guys can look at that if you want to kind of see what the other companies are charging per man hour. But you're right there in the sweet spot at $60 per man hour, basically $1 a minute. So if you guys are out there looking at a job and you're like, this is going to probably take me about an hour if just one person was doing it, or let's say you have 2 guys doing it, like, yeah, it would probably take us about a half hour, 30 minutes. With 30 minutes with 2 guys is 1 man hour. And so that would be a $60, you charge the customer $60 for a yard that takes 30 minutes with 2 people. And so that's a good rule of thumb. And I'm glad you're sharing this information, because for the guys that are just starting, they would go to that job and be like, yeah, I'll do it for $40. Like, no, you should be doing it for $60.
Right. But, yeah. You can't be afraid to go a little bit above what you think. And then when you're doing any projects, you have to factor in everything. You're going to have to go to the dump. You're going to have to go get material. You're going to have some waste, some extra time always. So you do have to think about all of that as well.
And when you're bidding these bigger jobs, I'm assuming you guys do sod and mulch. I know my friend Naylor, I have 2 friends in Virginia. Adam Sylvester's in your city.
Yeah, he's great. I've known him for a while.
Okay, yeah, he does gutters and lawn care, and I've had him on the podcast, and we've been friends off air and stuff like that. And so I'm a little familiar with Virginia, what you guys got going on there with fling and mulch and everything. But how do you price a job like that when you're doing materials such as sod or mulch? What's going through your bidding process on those irregular jobs?
Yeah, so something like a sod job, I'll do the prep work separate, and that's something that I'll do charged by the hour. So say I think it's going to be like $1,000 worth of prepping, and then $120 a yard for topsoil if we need topsoil installed, and then $1 per square foot on the sod. And we get the sod for 25 cents a yard or a square foot. So the sod itself, sod installation, is by the square foot. And then you have to add delivery because it has to get either delivered or you pick it up. And then the prep work, I just kind of bid it separately. I mean, all in the same bid, but think about it separately. And that's going to be based on how long I think it's going to take. And then the mulch, I charge, just to keep it simple, I charge by the yard of mulch. So usually it's about $100 a yard. If it's something colored or something we don't keep in stock, it's $120 or $150 a yard. And then I will have minimums if it's something very small.
For the prepping of the sod, what machine do you use, or how do you kind of get things graded out there? What do you use?
If it's small enough where we can do it by hand and avoid bringing a machine out, we'll do that. We'll just take it up by hand and rake it by hand. That seems to work well on smaller jobs. We do have one skid steer that we'll take out if it's something bigger. But a lot of the stuff is like 1,000 to 2,500 square feet of sod. So we can knock that out pretty quick doing the prep work by hand if it's a 4 or 5 man crew doing that.
Okay. And then with your skid steer, what attachment do you have when you're doing a larger yard?
We just use a big bucket with the teeth on it, so that grades it up pretty well, and it'll scoop up the grass and it grades well. So we just use that. Okay.
And then in addition to sod jobs and mulch, is there anything else that you guys find is a profitable wheelhouse for you?
I think landscape installation is really good. And those jobs will definitely come the more you do some. I mean, if you're starting out with mulch jobs, that's a good start. And if you can work your way into smaller planting jobs, that's a good way to go. you can make good profit doing landscape installation, and it's pretty simple. It's basically a mulch job with putting plants in, and usually the customer will know what they want, or you can come up with a design, and that's a whole nother thing. But you can keep that pretty simple and make a good profit on that. Another good profitable thing to get into, and I know there's a lot of resources out there, is for the aeration and seeding.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good way to go too in the fall time.
Totally. That's really good. Well, Jack, I've worked with Megan and Joey. I started in 2020, and I knew what a profit and loss statement was, but I wasn't like obsessed with it like I am now.
Mm-hmm.
And I honestly couldn't have told you what a balance sheet or a statement of cash flows were, the first time they like went through it with me or whatever. But then going through it again the next month, and then the next month, and the next month, and the next month, and the next month, and then a year goes by, and 2 years go by, and 3 years go by. Now, like the night before I have my meeting with Megan and Joey, it's called the Know Your Numbers meeting, where we're going to go over the profit and loss statement, the statement of cash flows, the balance sheet, and then we usually talk about the growth of business, like what I should buy next, or what my expense threshold. Like sometimes Joey slaps my wrist and is like, let's settle down, Paul. But and those are just my meetings with them. Maybe yours are a little different, but what's it been like having a kind of a bookkeeping coach looking into your numbers, helping you with these reports? How has all of that helped you make better decisions as a small business owner?
Yeah, it's been huge. It's been huge for me as well. I was kind of trying to do it myself in the beginning, and of course I didn't know what I was doing. I was a lot of times just checking the bank account and kind of counting the expenses that I had. But yeah, it's been huge for me. And one of my favorite things about it is being able to look, now that I have a few years with them under my belt. One of my favorite things to do is look back at the previous months and previous years and see how I'm doing compared to last year and the year before. I think that's been really, really beneficial. So you can kind of see trends like, okay, these couple months tend to be a little bit slower. Let's see if we can ramp it up and try to beat last year to try to get some more money coming in and stuff like that. And then just understanding the expenses like you talked about, seeing if any of the categories are way out of whack, or if they seem too high, check last year or the previous months and see if those have been consistent, or see if something is too out of control or seems slow. And then you can check to the previous period. I think that's been really beneficial. And the more time that I have with them, it seems to get even more and more beneficial.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. And it's nice having like somebody who's not emotionally attached to the decision to say, hey, Joey, I'm thinking about buying this vehicle, or in your case, the skid steer, or, bringing on a new employee. What do you think? And he'll either say margin, ratio margin wise, I don't see any problem with that. Or, hey, why don't you wait a couple months? Why don't, is there another option? It's good that we have somebody who knows the numbers better than us, because they look at 50 different sets of books. So they know this stuff better than we do. Has there been any decisions that they helped you avoid, or mistakes they help you avoid, or purchases that they kind of gave you the green light on that comes to mind?
Yeah. I'm not sure if there's been any purchases or anything like that they've talked about, but we've looked at the margin for if I was to hire somebody in the office, or kind of take a lot of the roles off my hands, what I could afford to pay them. So that was really beneficial. And I enjoyed looking into that. So that was helpful to see, where the margin was, and seeing what I could offer if I was to bring someone on that's not generating any revenue. So that was beneficial. And I'm not sure if I definitely wouldn't have known that if I hadn't been working with them.
And tell us a little bit more about your bank accounts. Like, how many do you have? Are you a Mike Michalowicz Profit First guy, or you just got one account, or do you have multiple accounts? Like, how have you kind of set up the bank accounts for your business? Are you a singular bank account, or do you do multiple ones?
I like that Profit First method for sure. And every time I read or listen to that book, I tell myself I'm going to do it, but I still haven't done it. But I have one main account that gets the income, receives the income, and then I have another savings account that I usually keep for taxes. Mm-hmm. And then I have one that I have kind of tucked away that generates some interest, but that's all business revenue. So I have like one big savings account that I'll use for anything bigger. If I'm going to make a big investment, so that's where I kind of stockpile the money. And then I have one operating account and then one savings account for taxes. So basically three accounts.
Yeah, very similar to what I do. You and I have basically a hybrid Alouette's plan. When it comes to owner's pay, I know this is something Joey's really been fussing about to our community, that most lawn businesses aren't doing owner's pay intentionally and consistently and a good cadence or frequency. How have you kind of pulled money out of your business to pay yourself and done that route as Jack getting paid? What have you found works best for your personal income from the business?
Yeah, so really early on, I basically wasn't paying myself anything except for a few owner's draws here and there just to stay alive. And then I eventually went on to taking a little bit more of an owner's draw for a couple of years, and I probably let that go a little too long. I would have put myself on salary sooner, but starting last year and then this year, my Joey and Megan had talked to me about it, and also my tax accountant about putting myself on salary. So now I'm on salary, which has some benefits when it comes to taxes as well. But yeah, early on, I was just taking owner's draws, as little as I needed, honestly, when I was in the growth phase. I didn't really want to take money out at all. So I was taking owner's draw for a few years, and now just recently I put myself on salary. So that helps a little bit when it comes to taxes.
Fantastic. For your accountant, who do you use for the taxes?
The taxes, I've got a accountant here local that I started working with when I started my business. So I've been going to them. They're local. I like someone, in person that I can talk to face for that stuff.
Yeah. And they probably appreciate Megan and Joey having everything so squeaky
clean. Oh yeah.
By the end of the year, you're not doing the whole receipts and shoe boxes, and you're just, here's, the clean report, loss statement of cash flow, balance sheet, everything you could possibly need to know. It's all clean. Yeah,
that's been a huge benefit for sure.
Well, what would you say to somebody who's a young Jack in the 2021 era, the few $100,000 a year revenue, maybe 4 or 5 employees? What kind of pitfalls should they avoid if they're considering, becoming a multi-million-dollar landscaping business?
I would say if they have the goals of getting out of the field and growing a business that kind of runs without you there doing the work, really focus on marketing and bringing in a lot of work. That's really important, is to really realize the value in marketing. And you can do it a whole bunch of different ways. You can do it pretty cheaply if you put your mind to it. And but marketing and bringing in the work is really, really important. There's so many things that I think people focus on that's not really a needle mover. And marketing and bringing in work is what you need to be doing. That's really important.
What are your top marketing strategies, both for I'm sure the commercial and residential has a little bit different of a strategy. What works best marketing to get your ideal customers?
Right now, the website is really, really good. That really seems to work. And at this point, I have a decent brand in Charlottesville, so that really helps. But early on, when I was starting, and I didn't really have a name for myself, I did a lot of flyers in the mailboxes, a lot of postcards, a lot of yard signs, knocking on doors. But that's a cheap way to do it. It takes a little bit of time, but that's a cheap way to do it, and it really works. So any print marketing you can do, having a website's important. You don't have to spend a whole lot of money on it, but having a website is very important. So now it's branding kind of turns into marketing once you have some time. But the website's big, a little bit on social media, Facebook and stuff like that. We'll still do flyers if things get slow or anything like that in the fall, winter time, we'll do flyers. But print marketing and a website is top for me.
When it comes time for aeration season, are you just upselling that to all your existing customers, or do you kind of go outside of your base and, provide aerations to anybody else? How do you maximize? I know Virginia, that's a big moneymaker. How do you maximize that opportunity every fall?
Yeah. So early on when I was starting, I would do a marketing campaign pretty much for aeration and seeding and do the flyers everywhere that I could for that. But now that we have enough mowing customers, I do upsell it, like you said, to all the mowing clients. And then I'll just look back at the year and see the people that I had gotten requests from to do aeration and seeding, reach back out to them. And then if anybody else calls, I will take on other people. We have some people where that's all we do for them. I just talk to them once a year and they call for aeration and seeding. So we will take those on for sure, because we book out like 1 or 2 months where the landscaping crews or some of the mowing crews will stop mowing so much, because once you mow or once you aerate and seed, you can't mow. So we'll put a lot of people on board for that to do aeration and seeding. So we will take on other clients for sure to do that. But yeah, starting out, I did like a full marketing campaign just for that, just to do it.
Okay. And then with the fertilization and weed control, do you guys offer those services, or do you recommend somebody else in Charlottesville, or how do you handle the fert and squirt game?
Yeah, so we don't do it ourselves, but there's another company here called Virginia Green, and that's all they do. They're really big and they're really good, fast and efficient, pretty good price, I think. So any commercial stuff that we need to do, we'll just hire them out and subcontract them. And if any residential people call and request it, we'll just send them to Virginia Green. And we kind of partnered with them in a way. So if they get calls for landscaping or lawn work, they'll recommend us and vice versa. So that's been a good partnership.
What's your typical day? I know today's unusual because you scheduled a podcast with me, but on days you're not on the Green Industry Podcast, what's your workflow? Like where are you at 6, 7, 8 a.m.? What are you doing throughout the day? How are you keeping the machine going? What's a business owner at $2 million a year plus? What do you do all day?
Yeah. So in the morning, I go to the shop every morning still, and I'll talk to everybody, give them their worksheets if they need to, kind of check on some things. So I'll see everybody every single morning. And then I try to schedule the in-person meetings in the mornings with clients. So I'll do that in the morning. Then I'll usually either come back home or pop in a coffee shop and do all the office work from that morning. And then by the time that's done, usually something else has come in. So I'll go out and look at those. A lot of the stuff I don't need to meet with the clients. They're just requests for estimates and stuff like that. Sometimes I don't need to meet with them. So I'll go out and knock those out again and then come back and do some office work. But it definitely gets easier once you have some systems down and you're not super required in the field anymore. So it's a lot of driving around and looking at things, just making sure everything's running smooth. I check in with the guys usually towards the end of the day, make sure everything has gone well, if they have any questions for the next day. But it's a lot of driving around and looking at properties, some office work, estimates and stuff like that.
What time does your crew arrive at the shop in the morning?
They get there in between 6:30 and 7.
Okay. And then do y'all just rent storage units, or do you have a different setup? Or
yeah, I lease a shop right now, and so we can keep everything there. We can keep all the trucks there. We can keep mulch in bulk there, which is really nice. So I've got a good setup there, luckily. And then I bought some land, so I'm in the middle of building a shop pretty close by too. So that'll be nice.
Yeah, that's awesome. Congratulations, Jack.
Yeah, thank you.
How many acres did you get?
It's about an acre and a half. It's about an acre and a half and I'm going to put a big building on it, but yeah, it'll be nice. It's in like a commercial spot, so it'll have a parking lot and a lot of land. We can keep all of our mulch and plants there, so it'll be nice.
That's the dream. That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Is there anything we're leaving out here that you want to address, or any wisdom you want to impart to the guys, doing 50,000 to 250,000 revenue a year that are listening? Like, man, this guy, how do I get to be Jack one day?
I would say if they've got goals of building and getting to a phase where they're not required in the field, just to keep, like I said, keep bringing the work in and keep bringing the work in. Try to focus on a specific kind of business model and stick to that for a little bit and make sure that works and stick to what works. For us, it was maintenance, year-round maintenance. If that works for you, or if the hardscaping works, just find what works and double down on that. And that keeps it simple, and that'll let you move a little bit faster and move smoother and bring guys in. And don't be afraid to hire people and let other people do the work. I think that's a big downfall of some smaller companies that have struggled growing. Don't be afraid to let other people do the work, because they will make mistakes. I'm sure they're afraid of them making mistakes. They will make mistakes, but that's just part of it. You'll learn from it and get better, but that is part of it. So don't be afraid to take that step.
When you look at the future, Jack, what is your vision? Are you building this thing to sell it? Are you staying where you're at, revenue, employee wise? Are you growing? Are you scaling back? Like what excites you about the future? What are your goals?
Yeah, I think I haven't thought about selling it, in the near future. I'm sure that might happen down the road, but right now I really like where we're at. We're continuing to grow. Slower now, but it's a smooth growth. It's not like it was in the beginning. So I'm going to continue to grow it at a slower pace and just keep climbing up in revenue and profit and refining things. There's always something that can be improved. So that's what excites me, is to just keep honing in on the process and just making it better each and every year, every season.
When you do go to sell it one day, your business is set up so good. Like, your foundation is there. You got Jobber, you got all your customers, information for years of proof of like what services have been purchased through your business. You have these squeaky clean records from Megan and Joey. I mean, you will get, if you have a good business broker, you'll get top dollar for this business, whether that's 5-10 years or more than that. I don't know when that's going to be, but you're going to get a really nice exit when you do decide to sell it, because you've done everything. When these companies look to buy it, they're going to look at all these things and be like, this is rare. Everything's so organized. So that'll be exciting. But my last question is, with Megan and Joey, I know I've mentioned them many times today, because I asked them specifically. I said, who's your best client? Like, I want to interview one of your success stories. And it's like, you got to get, talk to Jack again. So they really like you. But what would you say to someone who's listening that doesn't have a bookkeeper, that hears us talking about balance sheets and statement of cash flows and profit and loss statements and all this stuff? What would you say to somebody about maybe considering hiring Megan and Joey and becoming a customer of theirs like we are?
I think it's a no-brainer. I think you got to do it. I'm sure they think it might be too expensive, or they think they can do it on their own, but I really think it's a no-brainer. They're going to become so much more organized and have a better understanding for the business. They're going to be able to talk to somebody that really knows what they're talking about, like you said. And it just helps in every aspect. Even if they're not super into the numbers, it's going to help them when they go and they need a loan, or they want to finance something. It's just going to help everything. It's going to help them make better decisions. I think it's a no-brainer, and I really think everyone should do it, no matter the size of the business. I think it's a no-brainer.
Very well said. Well, I really appreciate your time. Is there anything I missed out on that burning on your heart you wanted to share?
No, there's nothing I can think of. I appreciate it.